On Christmas Eve, my son grabbed my arm, yanked me out of my chair, and pointed at the door. "You have until morning to get your things out of this house. We're done pretending this is yours." I straightened my jacket, reached down beside my chair, lifted the leather briefcase I'd carried for 31 years, and set it on the dinner table. I looked at him calmly. "All right," I said. "Then let's stop pretending altogether." My wife, Carol, passed away 14 months before that Christmas. Pancreatic cancer, 7 weeks from diagnosis to the end. We had 34 years together in that house on Birchwood Lane in Columbus, Ohio. We raised our son there, painted every room twice, planted the oak tree in the backyard when he was born. After she died, I rattled around in it alone for 3 months before my son, Derek, suggested he and his wife, Tamara, move in to help. I said yes because I missed Carol so badly the silence felt like a physical weight, and because I believed a father could trust his son. I was 63 years old, retired after 31 years as a senior auditor with the Internal Revenue Service. I understood numbers, documentation, and the precise ways people construct lies around money. I had spent my entire career watching people believe they were smarter than the paper trail. They were never right. Derek and Tamara moved in on a Tuesday in September. By Friday, Tamara had rearranged the kitchen. By the following Monday, Derek had suggested we put both their names on the utility accounts for convenience. I said I'd think about it. I was already thinking about something else entirely. I want to be precise about when it changed, because this story requires precision. It was September 19th, a Thursday evening. I had gone to bed early with a headache. Around 10, I woke up thirsty and came downstairs quietly in socks. The kitchen light was on. I stopped in the hallway when I heard Tamara's voice, low and certain. "The house is worth at least $480, probably $5 with the market right now." Derek's voice, "He's healthy though. Could be another 20 years. Tamara, "Not if we get conservatorship. His memory isn't great." Silence. Then Derek, slower. "He remembers everything." Tamara, "People see what they're told to see. His doctor is practically retired. 1 or 2 appointments where he seems confused. A neighbor or two who'll say he's been forgetful. It doesn't take much." I looked into it. I stood in that hallway for 30 seconds. Then I walked back upstairs, sat on the edge of the bed where Carol used to sleep, and felt something settle inside me like a lock clicking shut. I am not a man who panics. 31 years auditing returns, building cases, presenting findings. Panic is a luxury for people without a plan. I started building mine that night. The next morning I called my attorney, a woman named Patricia Holloway who had handled Carol's estate and who I had known for 12 years. I told her what I'd heard. She listened without interrupting. When I finished, she said, "How long do you want to give them before you move?" I told her I wasn't moving. She said, "Good. Then let's get to work." Over the following 3 months, I documented everything. I am a retired IRS auditor. Documentation is not a skill I learned. It is the architecture of my professional life. I kept a legal pad on my nightstand and noted every conversation, every date, every amount. I installed a security system with audio-capable cameras, positioned to cover the living room, kitchen, foyer, and driveway. Ohio is a one-party consent state for recordings. I was always present, or a party, to every conversation captured. I reviewed the financials carefully. In the 4 months since Carol passed, Derek had borrowed $11,000 from me across 6 separate requests. Each one came with a specific stated reason: car transmission, dental emergency, back rent on their previous apartment, though they'd been living with me for 2 months by then. Medical copays. I had given every dollar without question, because he was my son and I was grieving, and I had not yet understood what I was looking at. After September 19th, I understood. I retrieved every bank transfer, every text message where he'd made the request, every Venmo record, every voicemail. I cross-referenced the stated reasons with their actual spending, which I was able to piece together through joint account statements from the months before they moved in, public records, and one afternoon when Derek's phone buzzed on the kitchen counter and I saw the name of a restaurant in Nashville, 2 weeks after he'd told me the dental bill had wiped them out. Patricia restructured my estate entirely by mid-November. The house transferred into a revocable living trust with the Nationwide Children's Hospital Foundation as primary beneficiary. My investment accounts moved to an irrevocable trust, life insurance beneficiary, changed from Derek to the foundation. New will executed, witnessed, notarized, filed, disinheritance clause drafted with surgical precision. I had provided, over the course of Derek's adult life, approximately $218,000 in support, gifts, tuition, and loans, all documented. The will stated this explicitly and noted that no further provision was made. Patricia also filed a quiet title action to clear the deed of any potential future claims. She advised me to have a comprehensive cognitive evaluation done. I scheduled it for November 22nd. Dr. Alan Marsh at Ohio State Medical Center. Full neuropsychological battery. I scored in the 94th percentile for my age group on executive function, 97th on memory. Dr. Marsh told me I was, in his clinical opinion, one of the sharpest 63-year-olds he had evaluated in a decade. I asked him to put that in writing. He did. I also hired a private investigator for 2 weeks in October. What he found was useful. Derek and Tamara had not paid rent on their previous apartment for 5 months before moving in with me, the stated reason for one of the loans. The landlord had begun eviction proceedings. The dental emergency loan corresponded with a weekend at a resort in Gatlinburg, Tennessee. The car transmission loan corresponded with a purchase at a jewelry store in Easton Town Center. Receipts existed. The investigator photographed them. There was also Tamara's brother, Brandon. He was present at the house frequently, had begun storing boxes in my garage without asking, and on 3 separate occasions I heard him on the phone in the driveway, referencing when the old man signs over. I documented each instance with date, time, and verbatim quote to the best of my recollection, corroborated where possible by the security system audio. I said nothing to any of them during this period. I continued making coffee in the morning, watching the evening news, asking Derek about his job, passing the bread at dinner. I am a patient man. I spent 31 years waiting for people to finish hanging themselves before I presented the evidence. Christmas Eve arrived on a Tuesday. Tamara had spent 2 weeks planning the dinner, which struck me as excessive until I understood it was theater. Brandon came at 4 o'clock, which I had not been told about. He arrived with a bottle of wine that cost more than his stated monthly income and shook my hand with the particular warmth of someone who wants something. I had set the table earlier that morning. Carol's china, the set from our wedding, 34 years old and still perfect. I do this every Christmas Eve. It is mine to do. Dinner started pleasantly enough. Tamara had cooked a standing rib roast and it was genuinely good. Brandon told a long story about his new job that contradicted what he had told me about his job in October. I ate and listened and did not correct him. Derek refilled everyone's wine glass twice and talked about the neighborhood, about housing prices, about how 4-bedroom houses on this block were moving fast. "You ever think about downsizing, Dad?" he said. The word dad landed the way it always does from him, now a tool, not a name. "I think about staying exactly where I am," I said. Tamara smiled. "But it's so much house for one person. All this maintenance. I manage fine." Brandon leaned back in his chair with the confidence of a man who believes he is about to win something. "No offense, but management gets harder as we get older, right? My uncle, he thought he was fine. Then one day he just couldn't keep up anymore. Happened fast." "Your uncle and I are different people," I said. The dinner continued. Tamara cleared the plates. Brandon helped, which was the first time in 6 visits he had done anything in the kitchen. I noticed. I noticed everything. They came back from the kitchen and sat down, and the quality of the silence changed. I had been waiting for this particular silence for 3 months. Derek placed his hands flat on the table. "Dad, we need to have a serious conversation." "All right, about the house, about what's fair, about the future." I folded my hands in my lap. My briefcase was on the floor beside my chair, where I had placed it before dinner. "Go ahead." Tamara spoke now, her voice practiced and gentle, the tone of someone managing a difficult patient. You've been alone here for over a year. We've been worried. We all have. You're not getting younger. And this house, all the upkeep, the finances, it's a lot. We think it might be time to talk about what happens next. Meaning what, specifically? Derek. Meaning we think it makes sense to put the house in all our names. Joint ownership. That way, if something happens to you, there's no delay, no probate, just continuity. And if nothing happens to me, Brandon, then nothing changes. You're still here. It's just, protected. I looked at each of them in turn. Protected for whom? The gentle tone evaporated. Tamara's voice dropped slightly. We've talked to people, Dad, about cognitive decline, about what the process looks like when someone can't manage their own affairs anymore. You've had some moments lately, forgetting appointments, losing your keys twice last month. I left my keys in the door once. I've done that since I was 40. It's a pattern, Derek said. Tamara keeps a log. A log, I repeated. Tamara nodded. It's not accusatory. It's just documentation. In case. I thought about the irony of that word in her mouth. In case of what? Derek leaned forward. His voice shifted, the careful performance falling away. In case we have to go to court and demonstrate that you need help managing your affairs. Dad, I don't want to do that. It's expensive and it's hard on everyone. But if you won't be reasonable, we don't have other options. Brandon, there are 3 of us who would testify. That's enough to get the process started. There it was, fully formed, clearly stated, witnessed by my security system and my own ears. I sat with it for a moment. Then I reached down and lifted the briefcase onto the table. Derek stared at it. What's that? 31 years of habit, I said. I set the combination 1984, the year Derek was born, and opened the latches. I lifted the lid. Inside were 5 tabbed folders, organized chronologically. Behind them, a small digital recorder. Beside it, a manila envelope sealed with a metal clasp. What is this? Tamara said. Documentation, I said. You mentioned you kept a log. So did I. I pulled the first folder and opened it on the table between us. Bank records, 6 wire transfers, $11,000 across 4 months, each with a printed note I had made at the time of transfer recording the stated reason. Transmission repair, August 14th, $2,000. I turned a page. Hotel receipt, August 15th through 17th, Gatlinburg, Tennessee, $412. I turned another page. The investigator's photograph of their car, intact, no visible damage, taken August 20th. Transmission repaired itself, apparently. Derek opened his mouth. I continued. Dental emergency, September 4th, $1,500. I turned a page. Jewelry purchase, Easton Town Center, September 6th. I turned another page. The receipt photographed and printed, $1,480. Receipt in Tamara's name. The table was very quiet. I closed the first folder and opened the second. Ohio is a one-party consent state. I was present in my own home for every conversation recorded here. I pressed play on the recorder. Tamara's voice filled the dining room, clear and unambiguous. September 19th, 10:12 p.m. The house is worth at least $480, probably $5 with the market right now. Then Derek. He's healthy, though. Could be another 20 years. Then Tamara. Not if we get conservatorship. His memory isn't great. I stopped the recording. Tamara had gone the color of old ash. Brandon pushed back slightly from the table. An unconscious movement, the instinct to create distance. I opened the third folder. November 22nd. Ohio State Medical Center. Neuropsychological evaluation, Dr. Alan Marsh. I removed the report and slid it across to Derek. You'll want to read the conclusion. He picked it up. His eyes moved across the page. I watched his face. Read it aloud, I said. For everyone. He didn't. He set it down. Patient demonstrates cognitive function in the 94th percentile for age cohort, I said. No evidence of memory impairment, diminished capacity, or any cognitive decline. Patient is fully competent for all legal and financial decisions. I paused. I scheduled that appointment the morning after your conversation about how difficult it would be for me to keep up. I predicted this move 3 months ago. I opened the fourth folder. Patricia Holloway, my attorney, prepared these documents in October and November. I laid them on the table one at a time. The first was the trust documents. Derek read the beneficiary designation and stopped. Nationwide Children's Hospital Foundation, I said. The house, the investment accounts, everything. The trust is irrevocable. It was funded October 31st. You can't do that, Tamara said. He's your son. Ohio has no forced heirship statute. I can leave my estate to anyone. I confirmed this with 3 separate attorneys. I slid the second document across. New will, executed November 15th. Witnessed, notarized, filed with the court. Disinheritance clause on page 4. I've provided $218,000 to Derek over his adult lifetime. That is documented to the penny and constitutes his inheritance. Brandon found his voice. This is insane. You're punishing your own family. I looked at him for a long moment. You store boxes in my garage without asking. You refer to me on your phone calls as the old man. On October 7th, standing in my driveway at 6:45 in the evening, you told someone, I believe it was your girlfriend, that the house would solve all their problems once things got sorted. I have the audio. I removed a single sheet from the folder, and your name appears on a loan application Derek filed in September listing this property as collateral, without my knowledge or consent. That's fraud. Brandon stood. I'm not sitting here for this. You're welcome to leave. The documentation doesn't require your presence. He sat back down. I opened the 5th folder. These are the loan agreements. Each transfer was conditioned on repayment, and I have the text messages where Derek agreed to those terms each time. I have not filed a civil suit yet. That is a decision I will make in the next 30 days. I folded my hands again. Patricia has the filing ready. $11,000 plus 6% annual interest under Ohio law. Wage garnishment is available if judgment is entered. Derek's voice came out thin. Dad, we made mistakes. I understand that. But you're talking about destroying your own son. I'm talking about consequences for theft, fraud, and a documented conspiracy to have me declared legally incompetent. You used the word conservatorship in my kitchen. You plan to find neighbors to give false testimony. That is conspiracy to commit perjury. We were talking, just talking. I pressed play on the recorder again. Tamara's voice. 1 or 2 appointments where he seems confused. A neighbor or two who'll say he's been forgetful. It doesn't take much. I looked into it. I stopped it. That is not talking. That is planning. Tamara stood now, her chair scraping. You recorded private conversations in your own house. My house. One-party consent state. My attorney confirmed the legality before the first recording was made. You set us up. I protected myself from people who were planning to steal from me and have me institutionalized. You began that process. I responded to it. I closed the briefcase. I didn't manufacture any of this. I recorded what you said and did. If you're uncomfortable hearing it, I understand why. The silence that followed was the kind that fills a room completely. Derek's hands were on the table, very still. When he spoke, his voice was different, smaller. What do you want? I want what I've always wanted. To live in the house Carol and I bought 34 years ago, without my finances being stolen and without my sanity being disputed in court. I stood. What happens next depends on you. I walked to the kitchen and poured myself a glass of water. Through the archway I could hear them in urgent, low conversation. Tamara's voice tight and sharp. Brandon saying something I couldn't make out. Derek, quiet. I am 63 years old. I spent 31 years watching people calculate, recalculate, search for the exit that wasn't there. I gave them time. When I returned to the dining room, Derek looked up at me. His eyes were red at the edges. Whether that was grief or strategy, I had stopped being able to tell. The recordings, he said. Are there more? Many more. How long? Since September 20th. 94 days. He looked at the briefcase. You've been planning this since October. I began planning it the morning after I heard your wife discuss having me committed. Yes. Tamara's voice came hard. You said our wife. You mean my wife. She's your daughter-in-law. She stopped being my daughter-in-law on September 19th, I said. I just didn't tell her yet. Brandon leaned forward, trying a different register. Reasonable and measured, the way people speak when they're stalling. Look, this has gotten out of hand. We all said things, made mistakes. There has to be a middle ground here. There isn't, I said. Middle ground requires good faith on both sides. You three plan to use the legal system to strip me of my rights and my property. That is not a miscommunication that a conversation can repair. We didn't actually do it, Derek said. You didn't succeed, I corrected. The attempt is documented. Tamara crossed her arms. Fine. What happens to us? You're going to file the lawsuit, take Derek's wages, put us out on the street? I'm going to make decisions based on what you do next. I sat back down. You have been living in this house for 4 months. You pay no rent. You contribute no utilities. You have borrowed $11,000 that you do not intend to repay. You have consumed Carol's food stores, used her furniture, and treated her home like a hotel you intend to eventually own. I opened the briefcase one more time and removed the manila envelope. I slid it across the table. Derek opened it. Inside was a formal eviction notice, prepared by Patricia Holloway, compliant with Ohio landlord-tenant law. 30 days notice to vacate, dated December 24th. Ohio requires 30 days for month-to-month occupants, I said. Patricia filed this yesterday as a precaution. You have until January 24th. Where are we supposed to go? Tamara said. That is not a question I'm responsible for answering. Brandon stood again, this time fully. You know what? This is elder abuse. You're a lonely old man weaponizing his attorney because his family tried to have a hard conversation. I looked at him. Elder abuse is the financial exploitation and psychological manipulation of persons 60 or older for personal gain. I'm the elder. You are the person who has been photographed in my driveway discussing the market value of my house 3 weeks after my wife died. I reached into the briefcase one final time and set a single page in front of him. The investigator's report. His name, his dates, his quotes. I have documentation. You have feelings. 31 years taught me that documentation wins. He read the page. He said nothing. Derek looked at his wife. She was reading the eviction notice, her jaw set. Then she set it down and looked at me with an expression I had seen before. Not rage, not grief, but the specific calculation of someone deciding how much to cut their losses. The lawsuit, she said. The $11,000. If we pay it, will you not file? The loan agreements specify repayment. File or not file, the debt exists. You can repay it on a schedule, or you can repay it under garnishment. Those are the options. Derek. A schedule. We can do $500 a month. I'll have Patricia draw up an agreement. Miss 2 payments, and the civil filing proceeds automatically. Tamara, quietly. And the recordings? The fraud complaint? I haven't decided about criminal referrals. That decision will be influenced by how the next 30 days go. Brandon picked up his jacket from the back of his chair. I'm leaving. You're welcome to take the boxes from my garage on your way out, I said. You have been storing them there since October 11th without permission. I'd like them gone by the time the eviction notice period expires. He left without another word. The front door closed behind him. Not a slam, but something close. I stood and began clearing Carol's china from the table. Derek watched me for a moment, then got up and helped. We moved in silence, the two of us. The way we had cleared tables when he was small and Carol was washing dishes in the kitchen, the radio on, the ordinary rhythm of a house that worked. He set the gravy boat on the counter, stood with his back to me. I heard her say it, he said. The conservatorship thing. I should have told her no. Yes. I didn't, though. No. He was quiet for a long time. Is there anything left between us? I thought about Carol, about the 34 years in that house, about the oak tree in the backyard that was the same age as the man standing beside me. I thought about the recordings, the investigators' photos, the $11,000 spent in restaurants and resort hotels, while I was told it was emergencies. I thought about September 19th, standing in socked feet in the hallway, listening to my son calculate how long I might live. I don't know, I said. That's honest. He nodded, slowly. Fair. He went upstairs. Tamara followed a few minutes later without speaking to me. I finished washing the china and dried each piece carefully and returned it to the cabinet where Carol had kept it for 34 years. The house was quiet. Outside, the December cold had settled hard on Birchwood Lane, and the Christmas lights on the neighbor's house threw red and green shadows across my front yard. I sat in the armchair in the living room. The briefcase was on the floor beside it. My phone buzzed, a text from Patricia Holloway. Merry Christmas. Everything's solid. Monday, we proceed as discussed, I replied. Thank you. Merry Christmas. I sat in the chair where I had sat every Christmas Eve for 34 years. The house quiet the way a house that is genuinely yours is quiet. And I felt something I had not felt since September. Not happiness. Not relief. Exactly. More like the particular satisfaction of a case closed properly. Every document in order. Every fact verified. Every outcome the result of work rather than luck. 3 days after Christmas, Patricia filed the debt collection lawsuit. $11,400 plus interest. The wage garnishment process began the following week after Derek failed to return her calls. On January 3rd, Tamara knocked on my bedroom door and asked if we could talk. I opened the door and stood in the doorway. She had been crying recently, or was about to. I couldn't tell which. I need you to know I understand what I did, she said. What we were doing. I'm not asking you to forgive it. I'm asking, is there any path where this doesn't ruin our lives completely? Repay the debt on schedule. Leave by January 24th. Don't contact me with any further requests for money or assistance. Those 3 things give you a path. The criminal referrals. I haven't filed anything with the prosecutor's office. If you maintain the repayment schedule and the eviction proceeds without incident, I'll make no referrals. She looked at me for a long moment. You're not cruel, she said. I thought you were cruel, but you're not. You're just exact. My wife would have said precise, I said. She thought I was too precise. Tamara went back downstairs. The next morning, she was making calls about apartments. They moved out on January 21st, 3 days before the deadline. I watched them load a rented truck from the living room window. Derek made 3 trips to my door to ask if I wanted various pieces of furniture they were leaving. I took a lamp that had been Carol's and let them have the rest. At the door, on his last trip out, Derek stopped. He didn't look at me directly. The tree is going to need pruning in the spring, he said. The oak, the south branch. I know, I said. I've been doing it for 30 years. He nodded, went down the front steps, got in the truck with Tamara. I stood in the doorway until the truck turned off Birchwood Lane. Then I closed the door, set the alarm, and walked to the kitchen to make coffee. February arrived quiet and cold. Patricia emailed Monday. First debt payment posted. $500, automatic transfer. On schedule. I had my carpets cleaned. Repainted the guest room the color Carol had always wanted, a soft blue-green she had called sea glass. I replaced the locks, upgraded the security system, and spent a Saturday afternoon in the garage reorganizing 30 years of accumulated tools and equipment that was finally entirely mine to organize. Cousin Robert called mid-February from Cincinnati. He'd heard something through the family network, some version of the story filtered through Derek's perspective. I told him the direct version and emailed him 3 files as a courtesy. He called back an hour later and apologized for calling without asking first. I met with Dr. James Whitmore from the Nationwide Children's Hospital Foundation on February 15th. He was a quiet man in his mid-50s who had been with the foundation for 20 years. We sat in his office and discussed the bequest over coffee. The Turner Fund, he said. That's what we'd like to call it, if you agree. It will support the pediatric cardiac unit renovation. Every year, children from Central Ohio will receive care in a facility that bears your family's name. I thought about Carol, who had volunteered at that hospital twice a month for 11 years, who had known the names of every nurse on the pediatric floor, She would have wanted that, I said. I imagine she was a remarkable woman. She was the most precise person I've ever known, I said. And I worked at the IRS for 31 years. He smiled. I signed the final bequest documentation and drove home on the highway, the February light flat and silver over Columbus, the same city I had lived in for 40 years. March came. The debt payments continued on schedule, the 15th of each month, automatic, unannounced. On the third payment, a text from Derek arrived at 9 p.m. Payment sent. I know you can see it, I replied. Received. Thank you. A pause. Then, I've been thinking. I want to say I'm sorry. Not to fix anything, just because it's true. I sat with that for a while before I answered. I believe you, I wrote. That's worth something. I don't know yet how much. He didn't respond. That was appropriate. Spring arrived. I pruned the south branch of the oak tree myself on a Saturday morning in April, the way I had done for 30 years, the ladder against the bark that Carol used to hold steady from the ground, making jokes about my balance. I didn't need anyone to hold it. I had done this alone before. I would do it alone now. Patricia called in April. All legal matters concluded, payments on track, estate documents sealed. If you need anything, you know where I am. I thanked her and meant it. I am 63 years old. I live alone in the house on Birchwood Lane where my wife and I raised our son and planted an oak tree and painted every room twice. Some mornings I sit at the kitchen table with coffee and the quiet feels like an accusation. Most mornings it feels like what it is, a life that is genuinely mine, organized precisely, documented thoroughly, built on facts rather than performances. I did not destroy my family. I removed a structure that had stopped being a family sometime before I acknowledged it. What remains is honest. The debt repayments arrive on schedule. The foundation is preparing the cardiac unit renovation. The oak tree will need the north branch addressed next spring. I keep the briefcase in my closet now. I keep it because it is mine and because it is useful and because I spent 31 years learning that the people who succeed are not the people who feel the most. They are the people who prepare the best. Carol knew that about me. She said it was my greatest strength and sometimes my hardest quality to live with, and she was right on both counts. I miss her every day. That is the one thing in this story that cannot be documented, cannot be filed, cannot be resolved. Everything else is in order.